Okay, today I want to show you how to read hard books. Now I have a stack, and this is pretty ambitious, but this is my plan, is to read all of these. And I have kind of different intentions. Actually, the stack itself is kind of important in the way that I kind of load up my hard reading, if you will. So in here, you may or may not notice there is some fiction. It's kind of classic, and this is a little bit more modern, but it is a little bit, it's kind of Cold War era spy novel. But so there's some kind of fun stuff in here, but these are pretty dense and intense reads as well. And then I've got mixed in here some nonfiction, and really the way that I'm going to read these is a little bit different. Obviously, Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, and the brothers Karamovs are going to be fun reads, and they're going to be breaks from some of this intense, but they're going to be intense as well. This one is kind of a newer one from Nate Silver. I'm always fascinated with sort of risk management and how people handle risk. So I'm excited to dig into this one, but knowing Nate Silver, it's going to be full of data and research. It's going to be super dense. So this one I'm going to read, pretty thoroughly, cover to cover, along with these fiction. These three, however, again, this is satisfying some curiosity that I have just around sort of the dynamics and the politics of nations, how they form, how they change, the phases they go through it. And I think this is somewhat relevant to a lot of things that are going on in the world. And by reading these, and these researchers from different periods of time actually as well, so they'll be a little bit contextually different. Some of these, like this one's a little bit older, we'll kind of see how things played out. So, but these I'm going to probably do more of a survey of these books, skimming, and kind of consuming them in a different way, not necessarily from cover to cover, or at least during certain parts I'll move through it quicker. But this whole process of reading hard books and how I go about it is going to facilitate and help all of these approaches to clearing off this stack. So let's jump right into how I do this. So back in the old days, we would do things like Cliff Notes or Spark Notes, or read some sort of literary review of these, and kind of prepare ourselves. But unfortunately, those types of materials, if you will, got a bad rap, right? In high school, like, oh, you can't read that, it's cheating, and this is going to be relevant to the way I show you how to do it. One of the things that often happened is those who are slightly less initiated would try to get it to do their homework, right? They would just use that material and make that the standalone consumption of the book, or the way that they got through the test. And so they're essentially trying to get those tools to do their homework, right? The way that I have started to work on getting through hard books is to use ChatGPT. And your probably first reaction is like, oh, that's cheating, right? You're going to have the same reaction, and I don't want it to get a bad rep. But it will make your reading more enjoyable. It will make your reading easier. And so I'm going to go ahead and show you my approach step by step, and even how I use it in an ongoing way as I'm moving through these books. And I'm going to give you some examples of exactly how I've done this and kind of show this to you. So first thing we want to do is turn over to our ChatGPT screen, and we're going to just do the most basic of prompts here. So I want you, and again, you've heard me talk about ChatGPT. I like to use it like an assistant, right? I like to use it like a companion or a colleague, and I'm just going to simply ask it to help me do what I'm trying to do, right? Prepare to read and get the most out of this particular book, which is John le Carré, Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. If you don't know this is an incredible book. I'm actually reading it. First time was a failure. The second time I'm thoroughly enjoying it. You can see how kind of far I am. But the reason that I'm enjoying it is because I went through this process in preparing me to read. So I simply put in that prompt, and you're going to see what it gives me. And this is not unlike what you would get out of a Cliff Notes or Spark Notes, but the nice thing is it's accessible, doesn't, cost anything. Obviously there's a free version and a paid version. I have the paid version, so there may be some differential. But anyway, it's not terribly expensive and it'll get you started. So important things that you're going to see here, right? Immediately, it's going to give me the context. It's going to give me the setting. One of the things that if you were to read this, John le Carré, he just kind of drops you in. He doesn't prepare. He doesn't clear his throat. He doesn't give you context. So he sort of drops you in. Now, if you know anything about Carré, he's set in sort of the Cold War. And for me, that is my era. And I actually spent time in Intel. So this contextually makes sense to me, but it is still helpful to have something like this remind me of some of that context. So it gives me the context of the setting of the story. Really powerful. It gives me some of the key characters that I should be watching for. And the other thing that le Carré does is that he doesn't give you explanations, right? He lets the story help you to discover, but sometimes it can be really difficult. For instance, he has a conversation about control. Well, control, like that as a word, has a different context than the way it's used here. It is capitalized, so it gives us an understanding that it's probably a proper noun. But it can take you a really long time, and it can be super frustrating as you're reading through this to figure out what is he talking about? What is the context of control? And in this sort of review, we understand that it's a person, right? Circus, he talks about the circus, right? Again, if you have never read this type of book, or you're not sort of steeped in Cold War time period and context, you wouldn't understand that the circus is British intelligence, right? And it's kind of the headquarters element of it, right? So again, lamplighters, mole, some of these words you might not be understanding of. So we're going to get, again, preparations, no spoilers in here. This is just going to prepare me. Then the next thing that I do is, although I will actually go through and have on my phone ChatGPT available, and I will bring up all of this. And you can see I have a kind of another thread going here where I spent some time in this far after the initial context. So I'm going to get to this in a second, but the first thing that I'll do is I want to use the front of the book to allow me to make some notes, right? So I'm going to take some of this, particularly characters, and then as I kind of work through the reading, as I note other characters or things, because these are complex sort of threads and nuances, it's good to keep track of things, right? So I'm going to actively use some of this to keep me in context with what I'm doing. So I'm going to actually take some of this and bring it into the front of my books. Now, some of you can't write in books, right? So this is just as effective, right? Grab your little field notes and make the same sort of annotations in there from what you've gotten from ChatGPT, right? And then that way it's easy reference. Of course, you'll have to carry this around. That's why I like to kind of put it in the book because it's already there. And if I pick this up again, I don't necessarily have to go back to ChatGPT. I can kind of go through my notes and give myself a little bit of context. I also often use a Notecard. So if I've got anything in there that I want to annotate, that's maybe more temporary or whatever, or questions. And then as I read, I will actually use again my ChatGPT, and you can see some of the things that I've done in here. So here was a new character that was not in my overview. I wanted to know who Toby was, right? And so it gives me some context, right? Again, if you tell it not to give you spoilers, it'll do a nice job of that. The other thing that's really interesting in here is, again, this is common for le Carré, is, he'll use something like competition. He's talking about the competition. Well, who is the competition? What he's talking about? He doesn't explain it to you, right? So I asked him, Who was the competition? Well, generally, we're talking about MI6 here because we're talking about intelligence, but MI5 is the competition. And this is a very common dynamic in intel, right? The CIA versus the FBI, MI6 versus MI5. And so I'm familiar with this tension. The FBI, along with MI5, have responsibility for intel internal, right, to the country, right? Whereas MI6 and the CIA looks outward, right? Their purview is only foreign sources of intelligence, right? And so that's how they kind of split the baby. But you may not know that right off the bat. So this becomes really important. So again, the steps are super simple. Use ChatGPT on your phone, on your computer, to set you up for success. Annotate inside of the book or a little notebook that you're going to carry with you as you read the book. Those basic facts, so you can, as you come across them, you'll be able to quickly go back to them. And then go ahead and have ChatGPT alongside of you, even the voice version, to ask it questions. The other thing you can do is you can use it essentially like a book club, right? You can have a conversation, and there's some in here where I've had a conversation. It's like I think it means this, or I'm picking up on that. Am I on the right track? So again, if you're trying to work through some hard books and clear this stack, I would suggest kind of these core things, right? Stack your book in such a way that you can pop back and forth as you potentially get frustrated, or you're having some challenges, or you just need to put it down for a second. Intermix fiction and nonfiction if you're kind of your thing. If you're just into nonfiction or you're just into fiction, maybe put hard and easy in that stack and move through it. And also understand exactly what your objective is as you're moving through these books. Here, reading for fun. Here, I really want to learn something. I want to consume and understand this book entirely because I can use this in the context of what I do for work. And risk is kind of just a really important overall conversation. I'm reading this for fun, but it's a classic. Everyone should read it. It has a lot of sort of insights to the human condition. Dostoevsky is just famous for that. It's also kind of a little bit connected here because this is kind of gives you insights into sort of the Soviet component of this. And then these, I just think it's like historically relevant, and I really want to understand sort of where we are in the phases of rising and falling of nations and some of the dynamics. I mentioned this a little bit. I was in the intel world, a political science major at my bachelor's level. And so this is just kind of my jam. I love understanding politics, foreign policy, and those sorts of things, and kind of what makes nations, it's quite simply, rise and fall. So I hope this helps you with some kind of additional new, maybe even approach to reading hard books, and help you to not steer away from them, right? And not just pick them up, get frustrated, cast them aside, but really figure out how to move through them, because there's just so much here. And if you consume hard books, you're going to be in that sort of top percentage, right? Because most people won't do that. So hope you enjoyed that. Love for you to join me here on the channel. Click subscribe, like this if it did you some good, and we'll see you on the next one.